this rolling. This is going to be a short one. Hey everybody, this is John for MTG Nexus, finishing up a league with Untitled Phoenix that we started last night. Hasn't gone particularly well so far. Some of that is some bad matchups. Some of it is a little bit of unfortunateness with our draws. Like I think a time where we had 10 draws or 10 different shots to hit a land and missed. You know, sometimes variance happens. So for this list, the main change I made from the one that I did in the 2-3 and 3-2 leagues was I cut the 2 copies of Arya Flame and added a second Bone Crusher Giant and a Brazen Borrower to the sideboard. That particular change hasn't been too terribly relevant in the league we've played so far. For reference, our 3 matches last night were Blue-Black Mill, Green Tron, and Amulet Titan. All of which, if you know, are historically rough matchups for Phoenix anyway, because Phoenix is kind of a fair deck. And Amulet and Tron just kind of smoke fair decks for the most part. And Mill kind of... we kind of tie into the Mill strategy, and our only hope is to kind of spike some Arclight Phoenixes and hit them before putting them in our graveyard. Well, when your opponent has Surgical 2 of 3 games, well, that just doesn't matter. So, anywho, the main reason we're testing this list is still Seasoned Pyromancer, a card that performed pretty admirably in our first 3 leagues. We haven't been playing against the right matchups for this card to be relevant, so therefore I think the deck overall power level-wise just kind of feels off in those particular matchups. The one thing I will say about Arclight Phoenix, or this variant of Arclight Phoenix, it is definitely designed to face much more fairer competition, so it's looking to play decks like Prowess and Jund, and even to a certain extent the blue-white X decks. It's not a deck that's specifically designed well to play against things like Tron or Mill or even Burn to a certain degree, which are decks that just operate on different axes than what this deck is trying to do. Does that make it weaker than its original version? Probably. But, you know, that said, you know, we still have the core of Thing in the Ice and Arclight Phoenix, so... Do you think there's any way to revive Mono Red Phoenix? I don't know really that... I don't know that Mono Red Arclight Phoenix ended up being better than Bedlam Reveler Phoenix, or Bedlam Reveler Prowess. I think even in the time that the 2 decks kind of coincided, once Lava Dart was printed, I think that the consensus seek-nair is that the 8 Prowess Creature 4 Bedlam Reveler version was... well, the format is fair, but you're still going to run into decks that aren't. You're still going to run into decks like Tron and Oops All Spells, and, you know, those aren't necessarily decks that we're looking to face. And even Death Shadow's a rough matchup, Jund's a rough matchup, you know, so... And I'm fine with Prowess being good. Like, we've had pretty reasonable results against Prowess so far. You know, granted, we've only played against the Izzet variant twice and the Rakdos variant once, but we've had, you know, we've won all 3 of those matchups. Now, they were close, but, you know... kind of an awkward hand here with our only land being a basic mountain, so this is a mulligan. This hand's reasonable. Definitely keeping, probably putting back a basic island and letting our opponent do their thing. What's up, Foz? How you doing tonight? Just going to play that out, probably fetching a tapped Steam Vents, depending on what our opponent's playing. At least they're living up to their name here. Sin is pretty bad against Azorius decks, but I'm kind of tired tonight, but I'm doing alright, I guess. Guess we jam our thing and somehow hope they don't have an answer to it. Time is probably going to be of the essence in this matchup, so probably interested in a third land. Actually, Thought Scour our opponent here, which obviously isn't ideal, but we definitely want the third land. We get 2 lands off of them. I think we just pass here. Good chance this gets pathed on end step. Nope. Okay. And they didn't have whatchamacallit. Interesting. Guess we just shock that in. Go ahead and Thought Scour ourselves first, see if we hit any Phoenixes here. We hit an Arc Light. Kind of leaves us in an awkward situation here. I think we just attack and then pass with Brazen Borrower up. I have a strange feeling. I still think this is going to get path. Yeah. We had to spend all those resources just doing things. We'll play Thing in the Ice here. This might be incorrect. Am I about to get spell snared? I am. Cool. Well, do I play into Snap Spell Snare? I guess. It's going to leave the Steam Vents in my hands. We have something to pitch to. Oh, really? That's awesome, Pause. Another Path to Exile, sure. See if they have an answer for this. Oh, what deck did you pick up? We're just casting Haggle here. We're not actually going to pitch anything. I'm literally doing this just to trigger Phoenix because I really don't want to discard Seasoned Pyro. You have yet another Path to Exile. Looking for Terminus, perhaps? Interesting. Are they going to... Okay. Snapcaster Path. So let's shuffle. That kind of sucks. I mean, I guess it's fine if they just, like, countered it, but... I did say that at some point, didn't I? Hopefully we don't get hit by Terminus. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Problem is, like, this old school blue-eye control having Celestial Colonnades kind of relevant, unfortunately. I think we just go to combat first here. Trying to nickel and dime them to death, I suppose. Lava Dart and Merchant of the Veil. I think we keep both of those, actually. Oh, they're targeting themselves? Okay. Well, honestly, that's your best route, Foz. The main thing with them, with the trade market, is you're better off using the main vendors, which are MTGO Traders, Goat Bots, and Card Hoarder. And most of the trading is done with bots. And generally, you want to stick to one vendor simply because I'm going to plus on a token here. Or minus on a token, I mean. Interesting. Why Merchant of the Veil? That doesn't make a ton of sense. Where's my third copy of Steam Vents here? It's already in the graveyard. Alright. It's fine, because I really didn't want to draw another Merchant of the Veil anyway, so if they mana leak this, it's kind of annoying. We're in trouble here. I think they're actually winning the race currently. Especially with Colonnade in play. In some ways, I don't understand why they haven't activated that Field of Ruin, because it's a guaranteed LD spell. Is it a Shark Typhoon, perhaps? Really looking for a bolt here. Guess Sinkhole does it. Do they have Force of Negation in their hand? Wow. Okay. Guess they're hoping to hit Terminus here. If they don't have a Terminus in their deck, they're really trying to sell an Academy Award-winning performance on it. I'm gonna say, you gotta fetch before you activate your Colonnade here, friend. Alright, got there in game 1 against Azorius. So we get to bring in Mystical Disputes, Bone Crushers, and a Brazen Borrower. Do I want to bring in Cleansing Wildfires to deal with Colonnades? I don't think so. Flame Slash feels pretty meh. A card they could have is either Baneslayer or Lyra is a possibility, which would be pretty rough. Don't really feel like we want to braid in this matchup. Doesn't really feel like we want any of these other cards. Obviously, Ether Gust isn't good. Flame Slash is eh. A braid, they don't really usually play artifacts unless they're on the Stoneforge Mystic variant, and we didn't see Stoneforge out of them yet. So I think those are all the cards we want. Probably get rid of a couple copies of Thought Scour. The card, it's just the least effective of our cantrips. Shave one Merchant of the Veil. Merchant of the Veil overall can be pretty effective at turning our extra lands into usable nonsense. And then, like these sometimes come down here. And then I think we shave one copy of TT. Like TT is like obviously a hammer threat, but we would have to waste a lot of resources to flip it, and oftentimes they can either just bounce it with Teferi or Jace, or they can just do the things like path it. So I think this hand's fine. It's not like super exciting, but at least it has Mystical Dispute and some stuff. Serum Visions. I guess that puts us in a boat where we actually have to shock in here. Anamorphose and Serum Visions. I think we want both? Question mark. It's going to be hard to beat blue-white with this kind of a hand. Huh. Titan Shift isn't all that effective on Moto. But it could certainly be an okay deck. So now we get to potentially get a little bit cute here. Gonna Serum Visions. Not interested in that. I am interested in the Phoenix. So now our opponent might just jam, thinking that they have... Hopefully they don't have Vendilion Click here. Nope, just opt. Sure. The opponent might just jam, thinking that the thing is clear, but we can Manamorphose into either Izzet Charm or Mystical Dispute. Really just going to run out a naked Snapcaster Mage. Okay. Props to you, friend. Interesting. I guess the problem for them is they're so far behind on clock that they have to be careful. We have to wait for Lava Dart until next turn. So I could jam Phoenix here. Play Pyro. Discard it that way, or I could discard it via Izzet Charm. Or I could just hard cast it. There's a lot of weird different lines we could take here. I think I want to do more than just get Phoenix at this point, so this stops their Snapcaster from attacking and guaranteed resolved our Seasoned Pyro. Because their hand probably has at least one copy of something like Ether Gust in it for them to have kept a hand like this and played a Naked Snapcaster. Their deck seems to be running an inordinately low amount of lands. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Gun Crusher here. This gets Ether Gusted, it gets Ether Gusted. I'm fine with that outcome. Okay, just resolve, sure. Celestial Purge. Do I fight over Purge here? I don't think so. Rest in peace. They have Mystical Dispute back up? Nope. Okay. Opt. Into opt. One might say we found some options. There's two ways. One, you can get the bots or buy from the bots. Usually, Goat Bots is the best for packs, Goat Bot boosters, or you can buy them directly from the store, but those tend to be more expensive. For the bots, you usually need tickets to buy them. And for... Holy crap, we won a match this league. I'm in shock. Can someone tell me why a matchup that was historically terrible for Izzet Phoenix we've now beat 3 different times? Is it just because they're not playing Narset? If you're still on after I do this match, War Dog, I'll walk you guys through how to pick up packs and stuff. Oh, okay, I can do that in a sec. Or after this match is over, I should say. This hand's fine. It's not like super exciting. Like we really need to draw spells, but this hand's, I think, it definitely a keep. One's mulliganing aggressively. I really hope we're not having a rematch against Tron. I guess Dredge wouldn't be particularly great either. I think my Dredge senses are tingling here. Just the fact that they're keeping priority here, like, tells me that they might have, like, haggle or something. If it's Dredge, this is really unfortunate for the home team. But it definitely feels like Dredge. Yep, I'm still definitely getting Dredge vibes. Comes Cathartic Reunion. Yep. So they get the ghoul back. Really need to get a little bit lucky here. And by lucky, I mean not draw another land there. Problem is we don't really have much for this matchup. We've basically got Ether Gusts and Anger of the Gods. None of which is particularly good against Dredge. a pretty good one. If they have Lightning Axe, obviously we're kind of... I think they would have used Axe to clear this out already, though. Come on, let's get lucky one more time here. So basically we're dead. Are we just actually dead? Block 3 takes 7. Ox is most likely lethal. Oh, there's Heskin flag on yard. Sure. That's one way to do it, too. Alright, so... Definitely want the Gusts. Definitely want Anger of the Gods. How else are we legitimately winning this match? Long darts, kind of whatever. Oh, it's definitely a horrible matchup without Surgicals or Ravenous Trap. Those were used to be the go-to. Like, it used to be reasonable when you had, like, multiple copies of Anger of the Gods and multiple Surgicals because you had Surgicals for the mirror match back when Phoenix was a thing. So that, at that point in time, Dredge was actually a reasonable matchup. Do I? I don't really think I like Bone Crusher. Brazen Borrower might be alright. Feels like Flame Slash is kind of redundant. One of those guys. Spyro could buy us a lot of time. But yeah, it's definitely a pretty bad matchup. This has been a league of how many bad matchups can I run into, it seems like. This hand has Anger of the Gods, so I think we have to keep. Definitely would like to find a TT. Brazen Borrower, Izzet Charm. We're just looking for land drops right now. Land drops and threats. Time to jam Cathartic here. Still need to find a threat. So I'm pitching Bolt and Sinkhole here. Thing in the Ice is the card we want. Yep, there's a Chill. Problem is this like nickel and dime value plan just doesn't add up very well against their deck. Well, I had a 4-1, a 2-3, and a 3-2. So I guess, 2-3 isn't exactly a great league. Alright, let's present them with a Thing in the Ice, see if they use whatchamacallit on it. Okay, no Lightning Axe, so they're probably going to Life from the Loam here. Thought Scour is such a weird card in the matchup because it could potentially like mill them out, but not obviously when they're at this point. I think we might be getting close to putting the check mark on this game. You're really going to risk going to 10 against the Lightning Bolt deck. Okay. Respect. No? Okay. Killing a bolt kind of sucks here. Play a second thing, go. Like, Ox is annoying, don't get me wrong. But Anger just cleans all this crap up, so I don't particularly care about that. Ancient Grudge. Okay, sure. Sloan? I think we're just going to gust this. Don't want them having a chance to hit other creeping chills. Don't really want to show him anger unless I have to here, so just gonna do this. Get it out of the way, swing with Awoken Horror. That was the easy game, ladies and gentlemen. That was the easy game. Still I think the Air Force is our best way to close out the game outside of Thing in the Ice. Opponent kept a 7-card hand. Guess we keep. Hope to get a little bit lucky here. Find an anger, find a TT quickly. Oh, we're just going to natural discard? Oop, okay. Sure. Guess you were due for a Shriekhorn kind of hand. Yeah, just grab Basic Island here. Bottom both those. They don't really contribute to any particular game plan. We already have more than enough lands. Okay, they got an Amalgam. No Dredge, fortunately. They have Cathartic, too. Oh, another Shriekhorn, sure. Conflagrate, Ancient Grudge. Ox is just going to be brutal here. I don't know what they're complaining about. They're still in excellent position to win this game. I get to conflagrate our Thing in the Ice here, do the thing. It's multiple conflagrates. I like how they're complaining about their dredges when they're about in position to loam plus conflagrate our board away. If they're smart, anyway. Sure. Surprised they didn't loam first, but whatevs. Alright, they're gonna Ox. Never mind. So what is our play here? Trying to do maximum digs here for... Hey Ghost, thanks for the raid, man. Coming in just in time to see us get squashed by a very large dredge board. Bottom that. It's kind of our last hope for the Anger of Gods in our deck. Yeah, sorry about that the one time. There's nobody home. Alright, so we lost a Dredge. Pretty, not gonna lie, pretty miserable league overall. So if you look at the league itself, we played against Amulet Titan, Greentron, Mill, Blue-White Control, and then Dredge. So while the result is pretty bad, 1-4 is pretty terrible overall. The thought process with this deck is just, you know, with Seasoned Pyro, this is a mid-range deck. And you still, like, one of the things with a Xerox deck, which for those of you who aren't familiar, Xerox is a term used mostly in Eternal formats, mostly in Vintage. But the thought process behind Xerox is you see like a ton of cards, so 1 or 2 hate cards of a particular type really matter. You know, between Ops, Serum Visions, Thought Scour, Manamorphose, Seasoned Pyromancer, Merchant of the Veil, the Haggle part. You know, you see, you know, even Izzet Charm in certain modes, you see a ton of cards in this deck, so the 2 or 3 hate cards in your sideboard matter. And the way this deck was currently constructed, it was designed to play against other fair decks. It was designed to play against Tron with the Cleansing Wildfire. And it's designed to go against the red decks and the blue decks of the format. And we pretty easily beat Blue-White Control. And, you know, we had our game plans against both Tron and Dredge. You know, obviously, against Dredge, without Graveyard Hate, you really have to have a fast thing in the ice. You have to flip a thing, kind of Hail Mary their board, you know, or play more copies of Anger of the Gods. We were only playing 1 instead of 2. So if you want to have game against Dredge without running Graveyard Hate, you can run a second Anger of the Gods. You could also run Ravenous Trap, Surgical Extraction. There's a lot of things you can run to make Dredge a good matchup, or a playable matchup. The thing with this deck, and it's even more so now with Seasoned Pyro, is I hate, of all the decks to compare it to, I hate to compare it to Jund, but this deck is essentially blue-red Jund. Maybe not in terms of pure card quality, But in terms of, you have to aim your deck to beat what you want to beat. And, you know, that's really a damning thing, because Phoenix used to be a deck that had game against everything, regardless of the configuration. But it would get weaker against a particular variant the more it moved towards, like, more surgical extractions for the mirror match, or this, that, and the other thing. Like I said, this version is tailored to kind of grind with the mid-range decks, play against the blue-white X piles, maybe not the Uro piles, but blue-white X, Jeskai, etc. And with the Cleansing Wildfires, it's geared towards trying to have game against Tron in the post-board games. You know, for switch-ups, maybe you can run, you know, Blood Moon instead of Cleansing Wildfire if you want to have game against, you know, a bigger part of the format. You can run Graveyard Hate if you're tired of losing to Upsal spells and Dredge like we have. You know, this deck's record through 4 leagues is 4-1, 3-2, 2-3, 1-4. So the deck is like 50-50. And that's not a good indicator for the deck. Actually, it's a good indicator for the deck, but just shows that the deck is a lot weaker than it used to be, but it's still playable. Like, Pyro takes it in... Arclight... So the thing with Arclight and Field of the Dead in general is... Jund is terrible against the Field of the Dead decks. Arclight, I don't know. I haven't actually run up against too many Uro Field of the Dead decks. The only 2 Field of the Dead decks I've run up against were Amulet Titan, which just stomps Phoenix without Blood Moon. And the other variant was, or the other Uro deck I ran into was Niv, and that was a close matchup. The thing with this deck is Phoenix can go over the top of Field of the Dead tokens, so it can ignore it in that regard. And Thing in the Ice can potentially flip and wipe out all of their tokens if they don't keep a fetch land or something up. So you do have outs, but you're definitely the aggressive deck. And no, Arclight really isn't that fast anymore. Like, I think the earliest kills you can set up anymore consistently are turn 5. So, like I said, you're definitely more of a mid-range deck. Having access to the Brazen Borrowers and the Arclight Phoenixes in this particular build, or other versions run like the Pyromancer's Ascension or Aria of Flame, like, you have, much like Jund, you can set up other axes of attack that they require answers for. The problem with a lot of those axes is they get answered by the same things. They get answered by Ether Gust. They get answered by Celestial Purge. They get answered by Cryptic Bounce. They get answered by Teferi Bounce. So, I haven't played against Eurofield enough to know. Blitz said he played against it and it felt terrible. So I don't know if you need Moon for that matchup or what. But a lot of different routes you can take with the deck. Do I think it's better than it was after the bannings with adding Seasoned Pyromancer? Yes. Do I think it's a tier 1, tier 2 deck? Honestly, no. Like, it's a deck that can pop up, it can win some things. You know, there's hope if people like this type of strategy that you can, like, play with this shell and, like, get it to where you want it to be. But it's not tier 1. You know? Like, I may work on it a little bit more, but it's just not tier 1. You know, it's too... The format's too open right now for this deck to target what it wants to beat. And this deck is beatable once people are aware of it again. So, you know, that said, I have an absurd record against Blue, White, and Jeskai right now, which is kind of dumb. 2 matchups that were historically terrible for Phoenix. But I think a lot of that is people have gone away from Narset. And Narset was like the card that just shut this deck down hardcore. All the cantrips and such. So I think the deck is better positioned than it has been at most points since the banning. Graveyard Heat is irrelevant against this deck. Like, that's one of the misconceptions people have about Phoenix. Is Phoenix was never a graveyard deck. Can Graveyard Heat be effective in conjunction with other disruption? Like, Relic of Progenitus in conjunction with, like, Paths and Surgical Paths and Celestial Purges? Absolutely. But Graveyard Heat isn't that good against Phoenix. Targeted Graveyard Heat against Arclight can ruin draws. See, Arclight Phoenix was always a thing in the ice deck. That's one of the things like people got away from when the deck is the original Arclight Phoenix deck was not Arclight Phoenix. It was Thing Ascension, which used Thing in the Ice and Pyromancer's Ascension along with Bolts and Helixes to end the game. So you have a different type of access. Like, can Graveyard Heat in conjunction with other stuff shut the deck down? Yes. But this version especially, you have Thing in the Ice, you have Season Pyro, you have the adventure creatures, especially in the post-board games. Arclight Phoenix is still a 3-2 with haste, even if you don't like do the cast 3 spells and flip it thing. It's just an incidental value card that goes with the rest of the engine in the deck. Season Pyro is an incidental card that goes with the rest of the deck. It allows you to draw more gas for Thing in the Ice. Thing in the Ice can bounce it back to your hand to allow you to draw more cards. It's a slow discard outlet for Arclight Phoenix. That's why I really wanted to get back and try Season Pyro. This card has performed wonderfully in what I wanted it to do. It's exactly the card I wanted for what I was doing with the deck. The problem is when you take the deck in this direction, you give up some of the speed and some of the explosiveness that the old versions used to have for having a mid-game. One of the things I learned, and this is kind of my wrap-up for this league as well, one of the things I found with the versions after looting banning is you just run out of gas. Like, you have that first wave or that second wave where you can like flip one Thing in the Ice or get back a Phoenix or two, but you could never like recoup your cards once you expended your resources. This version on numerous occasions has gone like Spyro into another Spyro into like a bunch of spells and just like outvalued decks. Like, this is the first time with this deck in quite some time that I've gotten down to like 8 or 10 cards. Like, there's been, if you go back and look at some of the Blue-White X matchups I've played, I've gotten down to 4 or 5 cards in my library. Like, this deck legitimately goes through its deck like the old looting builds, but it's slower, it's less explosive. You don't have as many turn 2 Phoenix turns or turn 3 flip the Thing in the Ice. I mean, they still happen, but they're not as explosive. So you're more of a mid-range deck. So you're worse at racing decks like Ad Nauseam. You're worse at racing decks like Tron and, those kind of decks. And those are the kind of decks, if I put most of the category of the losses, most of my losses are to decks that are big mana or decks that don't care about what we're doing, which is primarily decks like Upsal Spells or Neobrand, or can overwhelm our removal like Devoted Devastation. So I think the deck's about where I want it to be for right now, but the results are going to be inconsistent. I just kind of wanted to give people hope that Phoenix was playable again, and I do think I've achieved that aim. Do I think it's tier 1? No. Do I think it was better than when I played it 6 months ago, back in May? Absolutely. Alrighty. I think that about wraps up my animated discussion for this. And I'm going to hit the stop record.